Hi, I'm Jeanne Fiorini. Thanks for tuning in to the Tarot Tips. Today we're going to talk about a few cards in the Major Arcana, 4 out of the 22 Major Arcana cards that speak to the idea of change. I don't think anybody would disagree that we are in a profound period of change culturally, socially, and individually. So the cards of change that are in the Tarot Major Arcana may be coming up for people a little bit more lately. So I thought I would talk a little bit about the 4 cards that are particularly significant of how we exit one phase and enter a new phase in our life and the differences between them. As we know, as we've seen through the compare and contrast videos that we've done over the recent year or so, even though cards might be very similar in their meanings, and sometimes we might be confused and think, what's the difference between that one and this one? 8 of Cups, 5 of Cups, for instance. 10 of Swords, 2 of Swords, for instance. You know, we might look at those and think, well, there's so much saying the same thing. But the tarot doesn't replicate itself. The tarot doesn't use 2 cards to say what could be said in 1 card. So it's important to be able to discern the differences between, sometimes very subtle differences between cards. So that's what we're going to talk about today, the 4 major cards of change in the Major Arcana. So let's go to the tarot table. The first card we're going to look at today is the Wheel of Fortune card. Because of the word fortune, which people tend to think of as being connected to money, I just like to call this card the wheel. And sometimes it is depicted like that in various decks. So the wheel card is about change, which is cyclical. If we look at the number here, the number on the wheel card is 10. So 10 is intrinsic to this idea of change. 10 as a numeral, well, it has 2 numerals, a 1 and a 0. So when you add those together, you get 1 plus 0 is 1. So a 10 has within itself the seed for a new beginning. The idea of change behind the wheel card is non-personal. It's connected to the cycles of life. It's connected to the universal pattern. I live in the Northeast of the United States, and it's a place where you can't take the weather personally. That's a wheel kind of idea. Oh, it's raining today, or oh, we just got 3 feet of snow. Change is happening, the seasons are turning. It wasn't intended to annoy me or complicate my day. It's just that's the way things go. So we see this card come up when there's a natural fluctuation in the way things have been. Again, cycles, seasons. One of the somewhat obvious examples is when we leave the 12th grade in school. We're done with high school. There's nowhere to go. They won't let you back in the building if you've completed your 12th grade. So this is it's a time to exit the old phase and enter the new phase and kind of roll with the punches. It's important with the wheel card to not ask why, but to think about what I'm leaving behind and what I might want to create in the future. So non-personal change with the wheel card. The next card, the Death card, is going to change that non-personal idea. So here's the second card of change. The Death card shows several figures, and I'm using the traditional version. You may or may not have a tarot deck that's depicted in this exact same way. But I think it's helpful to use the traditional images here when we're talking about these ideas. The only being who's dead on the Death card in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is the Emperor, and he's way underneath the horse. Sometimes you can't even really recognize him. The Emperor is the only figure here who has not been flexible to the force of change. Now there's a numerological connection there because the Death is card 13, 1 and 3 is 4, 4 is the Emperor card, so the Emperor must give way to the force of change, to evolution, to building something which eventually will deteriorate. So the Death card throws in an aspect of I'm personally identified with something that is changing. The Death card comes up for people when they retire from a job that they've had for a long time, when they've moved from maybe their childhood home and they're embarking on a different phase of their life. Sometimes it comes up when people get divorced. It also, I've seen it come up when people get married, especially for the first time, because that is the death of being a single person. That is the end of your relationship to yourself as a single individual entity. When we get married, we enter into commitment to another person. So that too can be a death. We don't want to see any of these cards of change, as we try not to see any card in the tarot as either good or bad. The pain in the Death card comes when we're specifically attached to the old identification. So if I leave my job, but I really thought of myself as a dentist, and I'm not a dentist anymore, and who am I? You know, that's an identity crisis. That's the Death card. But remember that most Death cards do show some sort of new life coming up. This is a sunrise here in the background. In the old versions of tarot, we see body parts springing up from the ground. So this is not a card of finality. This is a card of transition. And remember that it's card 13 out of 22, so it's not the last word. All right, the third card of change. Let me also say that the Death energy tends to be organic. It tends to be cyclical in the same way that the Wheel card is, but it is personal. So that might be a difference that we might point out between the Wheel and the Death card in terms of their attitude or their function in the face of change. Third card of change, Tower card. This is abrupt change. There's nothing cyclical about this. Tower card is radical change, change that bonks us on the side of the head and says, you better wake up. This is something like an epiphany. This could be something where all of a sudden, you know, you might say, I did not see that coming. That's the kind of change that the Tower card brings. It is a card of structure. If we look at the numbers, this is card 16. 1 and 6 is 7. This connects us to the Chariot card. Another structure, a car, a chariot, depicted in the tarot. So the Chariot card enables us to move forward. The Tower card says that structure is too small for you now and you need more space, whether you like it or not. So sometimes the Tower card feels like we've just been pushed out of an airplane and we're not sure if we have a parachute or not. The Tower card is sudden change, it's significant change, it gets us out of our comfort zone. It doesn't have an organic, evolving sense to it. There might be some backstory there that is evolving, but the energy of the Tower is sudden, like that lightning bolt. And ultimately, this is about freeing us from something. And sometimes we're very comfortable in our towers, in our structures, in our mindsets. And when we're forced to change those, it can be very uncomfortable. So the third card of change is not within our control. It comes upon us, and sometimes in ways that might make us uncomfortable. But it also allows us some freedom. The fourth card of change is the Judgment card. Now, the thing that's different about this card is that, let's say the wheel is change of seasons, change of cycles, change of phases in our life. We could maybe almost say the aging process. Leaving childhood, leaving teenagerhood, leaving middle age, whatever it is. Death card, attachment to the old who was I idea. Tower card, I just got unseated from the forms within which I have been working through my life. Judgment card is the card where all forces come together. That's what this red cross is. The angel, the people are looking at the angel. In this particular deck, it's the only card where all the figures in the card are seeing the angel. So the Judgment card is change that we create, that we take action to. So there's this idea of knowing and taking action, of hearing the call and knowing what to do about it. So the Judgment card as card 20, the next to the last card in the major arcana, if you count the Fool as kind of outside of the system as 0 and 22, the Judgment is the place where all awareness, all development, the spiritual and the physical, everything's coming together. And so there's a lot of freedom and awareness about what action to take. Judgment. It's the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's the, as they say in Maine, it's the fish or cut bait place. Are you in or are you out? What are you going to do about it? Judgment is the call to action. It's the call to take what you know, who you've developed yourself to be, and put your money where your mouth is. So this is change that we make happen. So I hope you can use those ideas as you work with your cards, as they show up in your readings over the next period. Certainly we are in a time culturally where all of these things, different forces of change, certainly are swirling around us. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.